Thank you very much for this introduction. I'm very happy to take part in this important and timely conversation with so many friends and colleagues. I'm going to be very brief because I wouldn't like to take the floor too long. I know that the Zoom space is very competitive, and it's important for our audience to to share its views with us. So just a few words to introduce myself and say a few words about my mission here in Washington, D.C. As you said, Mr. Ramamurthy, I am currently the director of the Atlantic Council's Africa Center and senior fellow at the Europe Center. It's a way to summarize everything. I have a foot in 3 continents, in Africa, where I was born, since I was born in Senegal, and I am also a Senegalese citizen. And I spent my first 10 years in this country, and I have never forgotten the country, since a large part of my family is still there, and the connection is very strong. My foot in the continent is also professional, since I am a teacher at the Polytechnic University of Mohammed VI in Morocco. I'm teaching African affairs, of course. And in my current work as director of the Atlantic Council's Africa Center, Africa is everywhere in my life, since the morning until the evening. It's my passion, is my job. I'm very lucky. And I have another foot on the European continent. Like I said, I am also a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center. Since after I left Africa, I grew up in Paris. I am graduated from Sciences Po Paris, where I am a teacher too. I'm a teacher in the school where I was graduated. It's a second reason to be very lucky, and I had all my professional life in Paris, since I am a high civil servant. That's my real job. I'm a high civil servant at the French Senate. I'm not a staffer. I'm not a political appointee. Really, this is a job for life. I'm lucky, where I belong to an administration dedicated specifically to the French Senate. I'm taking the time to explain because it's very specific to French institutions. After that, I just had what I thought to be a break when I joined French politics. I joined the government of a previous French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, as a Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Human Rights. Human rights is another passion of mine, and everything I'm doing in my work currently is related to human rights, freedom of speech, rights for women's rights, children's rights, all these important rights related to human beings that, for me, should be promoted and defended every day and everywhere at the same level. And after this important and critical mission, that was a first experience for our country, because it was the first time government appointed someone to handle human rights in our foreign policy. So it was a bit noisy and challenging, but it was really another reason to feel lucky, because I was doing what I liked. And after that, I have been appointed, because it could not last, promoting human rights in foreign policy. It's something very difficult, and I experienced that about Libya, about the DRC, about Colombia, about the United States too, regarding death penalty. So sometimes it can be difficult with our partners to share our views on human rights. And when you consider yourself as the country of human rights, because France considers itself like that. So it may be challenging. And when you have to deal with human rights in your own country, it's much more challenging. So it could not last, unfortunately, or fortunately for some people. I joined another ministry, the Ministry of Sports. It was something different, but I continued the work and the mission on human rights, because you can struggle there against homophobia, for example. You can struggle for women rights. Athletes need equality too in sports. And we obtain the organization as country of major competitions and games like the Euro of football in 2016, or golf, the Ryder Cup 2018. So it was a great experience to share all these emotions with our champions, icons, legends, and work in the same time for sustainable development and human rights too. And then I finished my political career there. The last step was ambassador at UNESCO, where I promoted culture and education in this multilateral UN organization. No, my last step was to try to run for French presidency, but it's another story. And since then, I joined the Washington. You understand that I'm not speaking about less about my life than my beliefs, my deep beliefs. That's why I'm sharing this in this format. I joined Washington, D.C. as a consultant for the World Bank because I wanted to dig deeper about African matters. I really think that Africa is the new frontier. I'm not saying that because I was born on the continent, but because it's just the truth. Even if I came from Sweden, for example, I would say the same as an expert of international affairs. It's just what we need to understand if we want to handle global challenges we are facing, and if we want to find new opportunities and a renewal of our concepts. I think the future of this is on the African continent. And I have collaborated with the World Bank on issues related to human capital, which means disability, things like disability, even sports too, of course, as a tool for development. I have worked on this issue. And then in the same time, I have joined the Atlantic Council to continue this work on African matters. And from here, I have, of course, I'm focused on 4 pillars: security, because there's no peace, no development, no growth without peace. So security is important, and my main focus are. I have been named like last year, April 2021. So it's pretty recent, but my work plan is focused on security matters about the Horn, of course, with everything that's happened in Ethiopia, Sahel, and Great Lakes. That's the work plan I have here on security issues. And I'm trying to promote a new African narrative to make people understand that the continent is not only strategic, but it is the oldest continent, the youngest continent, and in a few years, the largest population per region. So only this is enough to say that it is a strategic continent and that needs peace. Prosperity is also important because Africa needs to develop, of course, but maybe here we could change not only the narrative about Africa, but also change the rules, because the rules on the international stage are not always fair when we talk about African nations. So I'm working on climate issues, digital currencies, of course, trade, business, entrepreneurship, very classically, but also trying to take innovative questions like this, digital currencies, climate change, technology, sciences, space race, because the continent needs doesn't need aid or humanitarian approach, but business, development, and above all, industrial transformation. That's very critical and important. Creative industries is another focus I have. I'm convinced that the African continent has a leadership and a soft power through creative industries and even sports. You know that the NBA just invested in an NBA Africa with the Basketball Africa League, because on sports Africa has a leadership to claim, and it's the same for fashion, for music, for movies, you know, arts, etc. And of course, multilateralism, global challenges we have to deal together, and here not as victim, not as object, but as a subject, an actor. Africa, it needs to voice its needs, its priorities, its vision of the world, and maybe bring solutions to. So that's what we are doing at the Atlantic Council. We are trying to promote, to put these issues at the top of the diplomatic agenda. And at the same time, I have taken this opportunity to tell you my beliefs, what I think is important, what I would like to promote with our teams and with everyone that would like to join our efforts on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Yade. So growing up, I also was born in Africa and grew up in Europe. So I follow your career since the very, very beginning. So it's really an honor to have this conversation with you. So I'm going to start by actually talking about our common experience as global citizens. So Northeastern University is a very global university. Our students come from all around the world as our faculty. And so you're an example of this new type of leadership of people who cross boundaries, that share heritage between different cultures. So in view of the history of Africa, what do you think the African diaspora can bring to the continent with that type of experience?
Thank you, Professor Esole. I feel very honored to engage this discussion with you, knowing your reputation, expertise, and leadership too. So thank you, Northeastern, for having me with Professor Esole in this conversation. About the diaspora, yes, we are millions to experience the same global citizenship. Maybe it's you know, we are the legacy of history of global Africa. Africa experienced the worst and the best, and the outcome of this global Africa is us as citizens from everywhere, simply human beings. You know, we can be Americans, we can be Europeans, we can be Africans. That's why I think we are very lucky. We are bridges. People don't always understand that we are bridges, and we could be useful to handle global challenges and maybe bring global solutions, not only for Africans, but for every human being, because we are able to understand everyone without prejudice, without bias, because we belong to everywhere. And that's just a crazy thing to experience. The first president of Senegal used to say, we are not built in one blood anymore. These times are over. And it's this diaspora, the African diaspora is a miracle, because Africans are survivors. They survived everything in their own history. You know this history, slavery, colonization, and they are still there. They could have disappeared because this lasted like 15 centuries. The continent lost its population. We are, these days, we are in a period where the continent is finally recovering from this demographic loss. that's a cycle, a historical cycle that is knowing its end these days. And we are entering in a new period, a new cycle, historic cycle, where the continent is getting back its population. I mean, what should have been normal. That's why people who say that there are too many Africans on this earth are just wrong. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. They are under the average they should have reached since a long time. So the diaspora is everywhere, not only in Europe and the United States, but also in Pakistan with the CD, in Iran. You know, it's absolutely not known, but you know, in Russia, you know everything about the famous Pushkin, for example. His ancestor was an African. A few days ago, I was meeting with the embassy of Japan in Washington, D.C., and I was talking with him about the famous black samurai, Yasuke. Yasuke was from Mozambique. He was abducted and brought to Japan, where he became the most important aide of the most famous Japanese samurai. And Yasuke is not known, but he is a member of this diaspora too. So this is why I'm saying it's a miracle, and these diasporas can be bridges and answers to global challenges and an opportunity to, and I would add, they can have a role in hybrid cultures, you know, and when you see, I don't know, Beyonce celebrating the new Africa, the success of the film Black Panther, American film, but played with African actors, that's a lot on the, you know, when all these stories are very strong, very powerful, and they represent a hybrid culture we have in common and we share with everyone.
Thank you, Ambassador. So it really resonates with me when you say that African as survivor. And just to show how this global experience can give when we talk about issue, I would like to come back to the discussion that we had in the beginning of this webinar, when we were also talking about China, its role in Africa, and also the conflict between China, the US and Europe happening in Africa. So just for the audience, the way African countries look at China is very different from what we usually talk about here. So let's keep in mind that in Africa, the West are the country that colonize us, that organize the slavery trade. So when you have a newcomer like China, people are actually pretty warm to the idea to trade with a country that also has to go through hardship and develop its economy just like we would like to do. So in one of your interviews, you mentioned that Africa is the new China. Can you say a few words about that point of view, and also how African country has to maneuver between a superpower trying to influence the future?
Oh, yes, that's a very good remark. From Washington, what I understand that, you know, when we want to trigger the interest of our interlocutors, we just say China, because China is a new global power on the international stage. And when it comes to Africa, it triggers a lot of reactions. And people don't understand why we have this new partnership between China and Africa. China is seen as a threat, a problem, a challenge. And on, you know, when I was Secretary of State for Human Rights, you know, I had to deal with the Olympic Games organized in Beijing at that time, like these days, you know, and it was tough for me. Even I could not travel in China because of this title, human rights, you know, on my face. So you can see how difficult it is to handle these questions with China. But when it comes to Africa, China is a new strategic partner for African nations. We know why China came to Africa, to find natural resources. China is a huge demographic country that needs to feed its population. That's the main reason why China is trading with Africa. But they not only they found natural resources for their population, but they found also clients, consumers, markets. And that's why it's so powerful. That's why these partnerships are shaking the international order. Africa is building the most important, the largest free trade area in the world since last January 2021. That's a lot. A middle class beyond 1 billion in 2060. Before the pandemic, Africa was the home of half of the world's most dynamic economies. That's huge too. It is a strategic continent for demographic reasons, but like I said, because behind these young people, you have future clients and consumers. But on this continent, you have the biggest digital revolution in the world in these last 2 decades. And of course, the hub of an alternative multilateralism. That's right. And China, and from time to time with Russia, we can see that in Sahel and other parts of the continent, they are in a bold move to try to build something different from the usual multilateralism we have. They promote their own World Bank, they promote their own IMF. So that's something is going on there. In the African nations, they say we have the right to diversify our partnerships in name of our sovereignty and our needs. And I understand that for some classic global powers or former colonial powers, it is threatening for their, what they are used to have before. But I think that they should take this as an opportunity, maybe to adjust their policies to Africa. I really think that, because we have to take into consideration the new generations, open to the world. They know everything about what we are doing. They have Netflix too, and Netflix is more and more African. So they want to have another narrative about their continent. They would like to change some rules, and they feel that they have the right to discuss with everyone. I think that instead of criticizing China, we should just adjust our own policies from Washington and from Paris, and because I'm not sure that people in Africa want the same political system than in China. So that's why I really think that we are in a historical turning point.
So follow-up question that has to do with what you mentioned many times, that Africa is the youngest continent. We have very soon we will have the continent with the most people, but at the same time, at this time, it's difficult to see a continent rise without strong education. So how do we actually educate, give an education to all these young people in Africa? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities when it comes to education? Maybe new tools, more digital tools to bring more education to Africa, but also the question of in which language the children of Africa has to learn. So I'm a mathematician, and it resonates with me that if you're an African child, before to even learn to solve second-order equation, often you have to learn a foreign language. So what is the challenge when it comes to education to rise, for Africa to rise?
What I think, because your question is critical, I think it's the main answer that could help to fix African problems, because Africa is facing, I stressed the strength, the African strength, of course, and its strategic identity and position in the new world. But in the meantime, Africa is facing so many challenges, poverty, global warming, terrorism. It's a lot. The main answer to these three main challenges, in my opinion, should be education. First, I really think that to be able to handle this challenge of education, African nations should have the control on their education system, which means that it's like the military. You cannot just ask foreigners to handle the education of your people, what they have in their mind. If you say that it should be handled by foreign countries, partners, multilateral partners, and they will fund this, they will decide what you people should think, and for 2-3 generations. So I think African states should have the control. They can handle or many files, sectors with partners, and it's even critical to do so. But for education, they should just be sovereign and control their education system. 2, that means that they should do it in their languages, I think, and it's not exclusive. Africans are very lucky; they speak so many languages. Before becoming adults, they can speak like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 languages very often, because in one country you can have 10 languages shared by all the people of this country. On the African continent, 2,000 languages exist. It's an incredible cultural diversity. But everybody's talking about Francophone countries, Anglophone countries, maybe Portuguese countries, and that's it. But 2,000 languages, it's more than 3 cultural areas. And here it's because African nations had lost the control on their own languages. But I cannot accept when we say, we take some women in some African rural area, and we say in the international statistic and data, these women cannot speak or even understand the writing, the language. And that woman, she speaks 5, 6, 7 languages in her country. Yes. And this asset is not highlighted in international data, and that's a shame. And 3, on the policies and the means, it's important to raise the number of universities, of schools. It's very important, and even if we can say that more and more African children go to school now, even young girls, I think when it comes to the level of universities, you cannot find enough capacities, and that is a critical problem.
As I said earlier, so I am a member of the board of Malaika, which is a foundation that supports the education of young girls. So in Congo, and I think everywhere in the world, we said that educate a woman, educate a nation. So do you also see the opportunity here to focus on women education as a way to actually solve this problem? In many societies in Africa, people put their son first as well. And so pushing in a society in which like all women have access to education, I think everybody else will also have a chance. In your role now as the director of the African Center in one of the top think tank in Washington, DC, will you also have this vision to basically try to bring a solution to improve women education?
Yes, this question is also very, very important, because you cannot solve problems in Africa if you don't start with women, because women, particularly on the African continent, are the heart of the communities. You know, I even say that women, African women, they carry a leadership, and since always, you know, African women they have an economic role that is incredibly powerful. They produce 80% of the food on the African continent. They represent 60%, 70% of the agriculture on the continent. These data come from the World Bank, you know. The World Bank even says that if if women controlled agriculture in Burkina Faso, for example, the production would raise to 20%. You know, that's a lot. And even if we talk about political scene, for example, more and more women are involved in Africa on the political scene. That's a lot. Look at Senegal or Rwanda, where they are more and more in very high level positions in the parliament, or even as prime minister, or in the head of states too. We know that about Liberia or Ethiopia. So there is a leadership, women leadership in the African continent, more than other developed countries. So that's why it's so important to insist on the importance of education, because imagine if we did better on the education sphere, it would be tremendous. Their impact in the societies are so important. That's why when there is a crisis or a war in some African continent, you know, the warriors, the soldiers, the rebels, they attack first women first, because they know that if women are vulnerable, the impact on the communities will be tremendous. And
Yeah.
and it is the contrary is also true. If you want to repair a community, if you want to solve a problem in Africa, you should do this through women, because the impact will be more powerful than if you don't do this with women's support.
So I'd like to, before to start taking questions from the audience, I actually like to add the following comment. What is the definition of an entrepreneur in Africa? When you go, let's say in my home city of Kinshasa, you go in the morning and you drive around Kinshasa, you see women 5 a.m. in the morning with carrying load on their head, going, selling bread. Now they have access to microcredit in Kenya. So the definition of who is an African entrepreneur is not necessarily what people see from this side of the ocean. Our women in Africa, they are our best entrepreneurs. They sustain families. They basically are raising a continent. So I'm going to start with a question from Elias. So he asked, what type of policies, incentive should we put in place to encourage the diaspora community to return home and to invest in their countries of origin? That's the $1 million question.
Yes, it's a usual question, but it's very important. Sometimes people who it's a question. Very often people ask this question to Africans. I don't know why. Maybe because Africa, they see the continent as a poor continent. So why are you in Washington and Paris? You should go there and help. You would be more helpful there than in our countries. Sometimes it's because the African continent needs assets strong assets, engineers, experts, skills. And it's a true need, economically speaking, and even academically speaking. My first answer is everybody, has the freedom to do what he or she wants. There's no mandatory, no duty to go there in Africa. If people think that they are more and they can be useful from Washington or from Paris, it's their liberty, it's their freedom to do so, and they can be. I'm sure, Jonathan, you are in Boston. Every day you are working for the African continent because you are building companies, startups, you are engaged in so many projects of, supporting young generations, you are teaching, you are, and just because you are supporting the continent. Because you are the proof that the continent can be great and can achieve so many great things. So that's a way to serve the continent. And sometimes when you go back, you are not successful because you have to start from the scratch. People don't know you, who you are. You don't know the people. You are maybe not an African anymore because since so many years you are a Parisian, and people, they don't welcome you warmly when, because they have their own habits, their own knowledge, and maybe you are not in the right place.
Yeah.
And sometimes the states does not bring you help to adjust yourself to the new context.
Yes, I very much agree with that. So my point of view, like we have many programs in which we encourage students to do, for example, PhD. So by the way, Africa is one of the continents where the percentage of women scientists is the highest. And so we're very proud of it. But then when we bring the question of asking people to come back to Africa, my point of view is you are in Africa if your heart is in Africa. There is so many things that you can do using advantages that exist sometimes in other countries, and also not putting yourself at risk, because that's definitely one of the problems. Some of the biggest change that we need in Africa are not necessarily popular with the local elites. And sometimes you have more protection to do it from abroad. But what is nice is we have a mixture of people who make different choices. As long as they know where their heart is, I trust that they will do the right thing. So now I'd like to talk about problem of security. So you as in your career are talking about human rights and also the fact that you understand the Sahel very well. Can you maybe try to break down to our audience what is actually the issue happening over there?
Sorry, I missed your last sentence.
What is the issue with Sahel? So we see a lot of troops moves, France is involved. Sometimes it's very difficult to just understand like what is going on without knowing and following it day to day. So can you break it down for our audience?
Yes. Right now, as I'm speaking, as we are speaking, France is deciding to withdraw from Mali, and it's breaking news because France has been committed in Mali since more than 10 years now. I can understand for our audience, the Sahel is very far from the United States, but it's very important for the world because of the jihadist and the terrorist movements. Africa, and this part of Africa, is their new battleground. So what's happening there has consequences in Western city capitals. In Paris, we experienced very hard, bloody attacks a few years ago, And every day, the country is under pressure of these jihadists and terrorists, and the police is working hard to keep them very far from the city capitals. But these people, they travel. They are very flexible. And in the Sahel, after 10 years of war to try to contain these jihadist movements, France is going to announce its withdrawal from the heart of the Sahel, I mean Mali. And then yesterday we hosted an event about Russia's role in Mali, because a lot is happening. Not only you have the jihadists, very tough to contain them, because now they are reaching the Gulf of Guinea, African coastal states. And the Gulf of Guinea, it's the Atlantic. The Atlantic, it's the maritime border with the Americas, so it's not so far. And they are, they are in traffics, beyond the Atlantic with South America, drugs, etc. So it's a lot. And now there is a private paramilitary groups, Wagner from Russia, bringing help to the Malian government since France decided to withdraw. People are asking why Russia, what's going on? A new global player on the African continent. And in the meantime, the governments in Mali and in all these Sahelian countries, Burkina Faso, are very weak. 3 coups happened in these last months because the previous governments were too weak to tackle the jihadist and the terrorist threats. And now you have military at the head of these states, and they don't want to speak anymore with France, European and Western partners. And they're prioritizing these Russian groups. So that's where we stand right now. People fear an Afghanistan scenario. That's why it's so important to, beyond the military options, to focus on the populations and the developments, how we can bring a future to young generations of Sahelian populations there.
So Rama, we have about 2-3 minutes left. I'd like you to end with a note of hope. So we were talking yesterday, and this generation of African, they have this opportunity to basically redefine what is the standing of this continent in the world after hundreds of years of abuse. And so we have people like you who are in position of power, in position to advise leaders which path to take. So what can you say is your commitment for the following few years as the head of the African Center? What type of vision you would bring to redefine the place of Africa in the world?
It's a very tough question. I say first, it's not an individual task or mission. It has to be a teamwork. Everybody here who is attending this meeting can bring support and help. As thinker, as doer, because we are all linked to the African destiny. So if Africa gets well or better, everybody will get well or better. If things are getting worse in Africa, all of us will pay the consequences. So Africa is our future, our past, and we are all Africans since the first human being was born there. We have the common ancestors. So we all have a duty to go back to the continent, not only people who are born there. And how I'm trying. So it's a collective and a teamwork first. And two, I'm focusing on those priorities because everything is priority, everything. And it's very important to focus on a few topics, to prioritize them. So I have chosen to focus on issues undermined by other players. For example, when we talk about business, everybody will talk about, I don't know, let's take another example, climate change. Everybody will say, okay, we have to get rid of fossil energy, including gas. The problem is, for gas, I mean, for Western countries, it's a problem, you know, because of gas emissions, of course. We know that. All the COPs have failed since the first one. We are at like 26, Glasgow, it was the 26th COP, because the gas emissions are higher and higher. We agree. But for Africans, the choice is not between fossil and renewable energy. The choice is between electricity or death. So you cannot just say you should do more efforts on this like the others. Africa is a victim of the global warming. It's not, for them, it's not a threat, it's a reality. Every day, floods, rural exodus, deforestation, you know, they are experiencing this every day in their life. So, but they need electricity. So we should adjust our policies here. So that's the way I'm working. I'm not just saying the same like the others. I'm trying to focus on the populations and their needs and to put these issues at the top of the diplomatic agenda. And I'm trying to dig deeper on new industries like creative industries, sports. All these topics should be used to promote innovative sectors that can bring job creation for young people. So that's the way I'm trying to do this.
Thank you so much. And so as you raised the issue of global warming and finding new solutions, so I also want to say to all the scientists and the African scientists, this is your century to make a difference, to find solution for our home using science. And let's see what we're going to do. But, you know, I'm positive, Northeastern community, take the challenge and change the face of this world. And I bring back Ravi to conclude. And thank you so much again, Ambassador.
Thank you, Professor. I appreciate it. Thank you.